Well, we're back playing a little bit more of Vae Victis's 18th century system designed by Nicholas Strategos. In the same vein as the video I just did on Vorburg 1760, we're going to do Corbach 1760. This is another Western Front of the 7 Years' War battle, and uses essentially the same rules. You can use, actually, Vorburg was the newer game. You can use the Vorburg rules with Corbach. There's just two very minor changes. Basically the same tables. So we're just going to do that so I don't need to learn the discrepancies. These are the French rules and scenarios. These are the English ones that came with it. And here we have the battlefield of Corbach. So this one's going to be a little bit more interesting. We've got some elevation changes. We've got some ridges. We've got this heavy forested area here. And we've got a much more traditional linear setup with the forces facing off against each other in sort of a deployed line. This scenario is going to be a clash between Broglie and the Duke of Brunswick again. Historically, I believe this was a French victory. Sort of the town of Corbach is just off of this road down here. The French are deployed in a line along this hill, and then there's another force here in these woods. There's a sunken road and trail that moves through these woods. The Anglo-Allies they appear more numerous, but Broglie's going to come in with a pretty fat stack of reinforcements about halfway through the game, maybe a little more. The French actually get multiple rounds of reinforcements, so the numbers of French troops on the map is going to increase. The Anglo-Allies are attacking, or they historically did attack. There's a couple, there's some setup choices you have as the Anglo-Allies in this scenario, which is also why I wanted to play it. So you can have more of the forces over to this side along this clear field, or you can have some setup, which is what the Anglo-Allies did historically, where a few of these regiments, I guess, or battalions came through and tried to assault the French position through these woods and failed. And so I want to do the historical setup, so we're going to do that. Obviously, I know that there's French here when historically they maybe didn't. So we may try and take up a more defensive posture along here. But the Anglo-Allies have a bunch of independent units, which are going to be tough to command. I've tried to set up the leaders so that they can command as many of those independent units as possible. We've got over here on the left some small artillery, some artillery forward here, and then from the French line, we've got this command under Clausen here, and some independent cavalry on sort of the right flank. And then here we have Saint-Germain and his French. We've got some light units up here. Light units can actually move through the woods more efficiently than regular line troops, so that's why we probably don't want to attack there with the Anglo-Allies, but we might try and screen them a little bit. Scenario is 9 or 10 turns. Or it could end earlier. There are variable end conditions in this particular scenario, and I will explain those as we get close to them, but it is possible we don't go the distance based on losses and some random event luck. So we're just going to get underway. I will not explain the rules to this because you've seen a bunch of other videos I have done on this. The Anglo-Allies will have the initiative on the first turn, and we'll see what they decide to do as they roll for command, and we'll come back as the action heats up. Scenario started off kind of slow. Both sides' centers have been failing their activation rolls turn after turn. And so we don't really have a lot of movement there. It's been pretty slow going. The British also failed their activation roll on this last turn here with Griffin, and so they have not been able to move up, and it's been relegated to mostly some flank skirmishing. We've got some Jaegers and light cavalry out here skirmishing against each other inconclusively. This is Luckner. Yeah, Luckner's Anglo-Allied forces and some independent French cavalry here, just kind of screening that center, so it hasn't been too much happening. The British did move down this road into the woods. The French counterattacked, and they got the better of it against Brunswick. They actually did a step loss on Schulenburg here, so they had to fall back. What I'm trying to do now, the French are a little bit exposed here. I'm trying to get friggin' who is this? This is Kilomansig to activate, so he can start to move his guys potentially this direction, and try and force the French to withdraw before they're able to come and envelop this side. I also have not, because I haven't been able to activate him, I haven't been able to activate any of this cavalry back here, which should be supporting Brunswick's attack. So it's been kind of a mess. We failed to get the first batch of French reinforcements on the start of this turn, but the French did win initiative, so they're going to try and put that to good use and maybe press their advantage here through these woods. And then, next turn, there's a pretty good chance that Ruth is going to come on. He's not a great leader. His command value is pretty low, but I think they're going to come on somewhere on one of these roads. So they'll be able to back up the French. And because the Anglo-Allies have not been able to make any advance, the French are going to probably seize the momentum of the battle and be able to move forward against the English line. Well, we've played another turn, and if it looks like the Anglo-Allies are not moving, that's because they aren't moving. I have failed yet more command checks for the Anglo-Allied center. It's just insane how often just back-to-back bad die rolls are just absolutely crushing the Anglo-Allies' ability to even get into this scenario. They failed here 3 times in a row. They failed here 2 times in a row. So there's not much happening on the Anglo-Allied side while the French continue to skirmish over here and are just happy to wait as their reinforcements get closer to entering the battlefield and overwhelming the Allied forces. Fortune finally swinging in favor of the Anglo-Allies. Not only did they pass their command rolls this turn, as you can see, they've moved in with a full frontal assault here in the center, going to try and assault this hilltop. Could be a bad idea, but I do know that they're going to get reinforcements next turn, so I want to try and dislodge as much as possible the French units up on this hill and make it uncomfortable. And especially important because the Anglo-Allies won initiative this turn, I wanted to get in their face before these guys could change out of march column into line formation. So we're just going to go full press, see how it works. Anglo-Allies launching a full-scale attack against the French position, and we'll see how that goes. Well, the full battle is really joined now as the Allied press has pushed in against the French positions. Lots of disorganization happening across the line. The French actually did lose a unit here, a chasseur unit here. So we're starting to see some gaps show up in the battle as the infantry clash and fire at each other. The French not doing so great on their command rolls on the last turn. Weren't able to take advantage of some of the positioning that they had, and the Anglo-Allies were able to beat them back. The one thing I should mention here is that Ruth, the French reinforcements, did manage to pass their command check, and they were able to get into line formation, so I'm hoping that can happen again. The problem the French face in this battle right now is they don't have an overall commander, so someone like Ruth, who's got a command value of 2, is most likely not going to activate when on the French turn until Broglie comes in, and unfortunately Broglie did not make his early reinforcement roll, so he is going to come in on the next turn. We should be here. He's going to come in on the next turn, and that's going to provide one more turn for the Anglo-Allies to try and drive a dagger into the French lines. Yeah, it's teetering right now. It could go either way. I think both sides have a pretty good position and pretty good sort of momentum behind them. It's really going to come down to, does Ruth activate, and can the Anglo-Allies find a way to dislodge the French on top of this hill? I think will determine sort of the second half of this battle. As we get near the end of the scenario, Broglie's reinforcements coming on for the French are sorely needed as the Allied attack has routed most of the French center, and it's looking like on the right as well, Luckner has finally been able to push through the cavalry screen. So this is going to be a pretty tough fight to the end. There's not a lot of room here for the French to maneuver. And now that Broglie's on the map, we need to get him within range of Ruth to have a chance to bring these French soldiers to bear against Allied units, Allied brigades that have been fighting for most of the day, and hope that we can stem the tide. Oh, just in the nick of time, the French reinforcements may have saved the day here. I know this looks like a giant mess, but the impact of Ruth's French infantry on the Anglo-Allied right has caused a massive pile of chaos in front of the on-marching, looks like Germans, or Austrians under Oheim. These were the Anglo-Allied reinforcements coming up from this part of the map. They deployed in line here, and then this whole French right, Brunswick's troops, Kilomanseg's troops, were smashed into by Ruth, by the French here. And it's completely collapsed that flank. We also had the La Tue du Pain. I don't know what that is. La Tue du Pain. Anyways, it was a very large French regiment or battalion here under command of Saint-Germain, kind of come out of these woods and make an attack up the slope against Brunswick's artillery and infantry, and has forced Brunswick back. They actually captured and destroyed the 6-pound guns that Brunswick had with him. So now, with Broglie coming, marching up here with his best units in the game by far, it is going to be a contest here on this field as the battlefield the line starts to pivot this direction. The French have caused a lot of disorganization in the Anglo-Allied center. and it's going to be very hard to unknot this in the time that's left in the battle. The only place the Anglo-Allies have really succeeded here is over on their left, where they've absolutely eliminated the French cavalry. But if we think about it from a larger context, the French cavalry really did their job here. They screened that flank. They bought time for Broglie to come in with reinforcements. And now that he's able to take up this position, we might be able to have Clausen just kind of hold this hilltop here while we proceed to drive through the Anglo-Allies across the battlefield this way. So we'll see what happens. This next morale roll is actually very critical because we've got routing French units in places that are going to disrupt the rest of the routing Anglo-Allied units that are going to disrupt the rest of the oncoming formations. So if the Anglo-Allies don't go first, the French are going to continue this push and make it even harder to recover from this. So let's see what we get. And that is going to be a French initiative win, which is quite excellent for them and what they wanted to see. And that might be able to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat here. We do get a new leader for the French coming on this turn. No, actually, sorry, we do not. That's an optional rule. So there would have been another possible French cavalry formation if we wanted to give the French a little bit of an advantage in this battle, but we want to play the historical scenario. So this is where we are, and we have got 3 turns to go. The Anglo-Allies use their penultimate turn initiative to form up into some sort of organized line. They've actually got kind of elements of 2 lines going. We've got Luckner here on the left, who's sort of moving in front of some of Kilomanseg's units and some independents. We've got Griffin kind of in here. It's more of Kilomanseg over here. And then we've got Oheim sort of as a reserve line back here with some of the artillery. So the Anglo-Allies are actually in a really good spot. They ended up demoralizing one of the French formations under, looks like that was Clausen, eliminated some of those units. And the French really failed their activation rolls on that turn. They were trying to make some headway against the Anglo-Allies and push them back down to these lowlands, and they failed 3 of their 4 command rolls, which is really unfortunate. They also had some units route off the map. They did get the better of some of the Allies up in here in this sort of outlying skirmish in these woods, and they did eliminate one of Kilomanseg's infantry units here, thanks to some of Broglie's reinforcements entering on the scene. The French won the initiative for this turn. However, there is sort of a momentum system in this scenario. Depending on how many losses you take sort of per turn late in the battle, you make a die roll at the end of each turn to see what effect that might have on the following turn. And the French, unfortunately, succumbed to sort of a stall out of momentum. So none of their units are going to be able to move this turn, which really wastes that initiative. And I don't think that they're going to be able to win the scenario now. And so ultimately what they'll be playing for is a draw. In order to win at the end of turn 12, the Anglo-Allies need to have demoralized 3 formations. They've got 1 already. They've got another one that's close, which I believe is, well, it's not that close, actually. If you look at the casualties, both sides have done a really good job of using their independent units, which don't count towards demoralization, the ones in the black here, to really take the brunt of the forward losses. So it wasn't really until Clausen's units got into trouble in here with the Anglo-Allied push that we had any sort of demoralization factor. So this will likely be a draw, but if the Anglo-Allies can put the hurt on this final turn, we may see a small marginal victory out of this scenario. And we've reached the end of Corbach 1760, and it is a draw. Although I would say a draw, kind of leaning towards victory for the Anglo-Allies. If this battle were to continue, which likely it would, or there would be attempted withdrawals, the Anglo-Allies are in the process of absolutely rolling up the French right. It's not looking very pretty. A lot of grenadiers under Luckner over here having some success. They're into the rear of these French line reinforcements. Got really out of order here. Did not expect Luckner's advance to move that fast. And it's not looking good. Broglie's reinforcements were not enough to turn the tide. We ended with 1 formation demoralized on the French side, none on the Anglo-Allied side, although it was close in a number of cases. And yeah, this is the scenario. So draw, but we'll give the asterisk to the Anglo-Allies at Corbach in 1760. This is probably by far my favorite scenario design of any of the games in this system that I have played. It is pretty evenly matched. It's got some interesting terrain on it. It's got interesting positions for the setup. for the historical setup, and it's got sort of dynamic unit. It's got a dynamic situation because as more reinforcements enter, you get more pushing power with both sides kind of alternating turn over turn. The initiative is super important, and the sort of momentum rule about whether or not an army, based on their losses on a previous turn, will stop fighting or retreat is really interesting. And I think there's just a lot going on here that makes this battle, Corbach 1760, my favorite of the series that I have played so far. There are only 3 other scenarios that I have not played. 2 from the War of Austrian Succession, which I don't have that game because it's out of print and very old. And I have not played Hastenbeck 1757, which is another one that uses this system. And is actually the first of this trilogy, but again, out of print and hard to find. But yeah, this is definitely, if you're going to start and you want to play this system and you're watching this, track down an issue of Corbach 1760. If I can find the magazine, it is over here somewhere. It came in, I don't know where I put it right now. I can't find it. Anyways, comes in Vae Victis. Forget which issue specifically it was, but it's one of the more recent ones. I think this actually game might still be available, or maybe it's Warburg, I can't remember, but I really like this one a lot. It does make me kind of wish for the more complicated fire systems as found in battles of Louis XIV. This game, which I did play both scenarios, has a much more interesting combat system. It's more involved. So you've got different unit types shooting the fire combat, and then you've also got a shock segment as well. So while it is mostly the same, there's a little bit more going on in this game, and it actually gives the units more of a distinct flavor. This definitely more of a magazine game with the rules, and just combat is combat. So there's not much differential between shot and shock. But, it's all kind of folded into one, action in the game, which is attack. Again, not super in-depth in terms of the feel of the linear warfare tactics, for example. There are major benefits to flanking and keeping your guys in a line and whatnot. But it does tend to get pretty messy pretty quickly once the battle starts and the lines kind of go away. But it is a fun time. And I do like this game in particular from this series. It's a good starting point if you wanted to check it out. You could probably play this game in an hour or two, and you might be able to get some mileage out of it. There's a free deployment scenario that starts on turn 1 where all the units enter the map as sort of reinforcements, and you can kind of set your lines where you want them to be. We just played the historical one here, but overall, happy I have it in the collection. And thanks for watching a few more of these small games that I played through. This was from Vae Victis and designer Nicholas Strategos, Corbach 1760 from the 7 Years' War, part of their sort of Age of Reason series, I guess you would call it. That's got several games in it, closing in on 10, I think. And we'll see you in the next video.